She thought she was fighting for her marriage. He was preparing for a different future. Today, we're unpacking the military wife murder trial, from alleged infidelity and secret relationships to manipulation and testimony that lasted for hours. We will examine the warning signs and the difficult question many people ask afterward. Is it safer to leave quietly instead of confronting someone who has everything to lose? This isn't about blaming victims. It's about learning to recognize patterns, trust your instincts, and understand why some red flags should never be ignored. What if the biggest mistake isn't leaving the relationship? It's announcing you're leaving. Let's get on one. The military marriage murder trial involves the high-profile case of Alaska versus Zarius Hildebrand, which concluded in June of 2026. A jury convicted Hildebrand of murdering his wife following a trial. The victim, Soraya Hildebrand, age 21, a combat medic with the Alaska Army National Guard, and the defendant, her husband, Zarius Hildebrand, age 24, an active duty U.S. Army soldier stationed in Anchorage, Alaska. Here's the timeline. August 5th, 2023, the couple go out to celebrate husband's 21st birthday. August 10, 2023, they find wife's body at the bottom of a 15-foot hole. How did we get here? During the trial, the prosecution successfully argued that the husband intentionally shot his wife after she discovered he was having an affair. So how did we get from going out to celebrate a birthday, then the wife being discovered at the bottom of a 15-foot drain? How did we get there? Well, the defendant took the stand and he told us exactly how we got there. His birthday, her death. The parties were newlyweds. They were married for 8 months. He testified that in February or March, he was having an online relationship with a female by the name of Cheyenne. And he said his wife discovered the affair. And so it was really strange to see him take the stand, because as I sit here right now, I still don't know what the defendant's angle was, and I'm just dumbfounded at the evidence that came out against him as he took the stand. So his attorney had asked him, well, okay, so February, March of 2023, you're discovered to have this affair. Did you stop having this affair? And he said, no. And she said, why not? And he said something like, well, I didn't want, to be obvious, so I thought I would taper it off. Now, his attorney asked him, well, didn't your wife relocate to Alaska to be with you in January or February of 2023? He's like, yeah. And she was like, but you were having an affair at that time. He was like, yes. And then he went on to testify that he has this drinking problem and that he blacks out doing things and he can't recall what's going on. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, like what are we doing right now? Like what is the point of this guy's testimony? And so I'm like, okay, so he blacks out, he's a cheater. He's got an alcohol problem, okay? So what is he's gonna say, the blackout defense, I blacked out, I didn't know I killed her, I mean, that's not gonna go over very well. And then I noticed he was very uncomfortable on the stand, like he kept, shrugging his shoulders and he was trying to be all militant and it just wasn't working. And the whole time he had this same look on his face, like he had no remorse, he didn't cry, he didn't bat an eye. He just was very stoic. no emotion whatsoever. And so I'm just, I don't know what their angle was. And as I sit here right now, I still don't know what his angle was. It was a mess. So he's testifying, and he said that his wife confronted him with the suspicion of cheating. And the weirdest thing is his attorney kept asking him. She must have asked him like 15 or 16 times during his testimony. And Zarius, how did that make you feel? I'm like, I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. I'm like, why do you keep asking him? How does that make him feel? Like, ew, like no jury's gonna have sympathy for this guy. No one's liking him, okay? His wife is found at the bottom of a 15-foot storm drain. He's a cheater. He's, acknowledged that. And he's just not looking good. And he's doing weird stuff. And then she goes, and Zarius, how does that make you feel? And the whole time he says, oh, I felt guilty. Oh, I felt shame. And I'm going, where are we going with this? So then he testified that he couldn't remember anything that happened between August 6th and August 11th. Remember, August 5th is his birthday. He goes out. August 6th, the day after his birthday, until August 11th, he couldn't remember anything. That's what he said. He said it was like watching himself in the third person. But he did remember his birthday, and it seemed to me like he, lightened up a little bit when he started talking about his birthday and what they did. So they went out with there was a couple other people, and he got smashed, meaning he got drunk, and he was talking about, what he was drinking, and it seemed like he had this little smirk on his face, like he got excited when he was talking about what he was drinking. And so I learned something. They were drinking AMFs, and I didn't know what that was. But he explained that AMFs is very strong. Okay, they're very strong drinks, and they're called, the A stands for adios, and the MF stands for MFers. So adios MFers. I mean, it's pretty clever drink. And then he had some trash cans, and he said those are shots, and he had about 4 of those. He said they're not as strong as the AMFs, but they're strong. And so he's smashed, and I don't think there's I don't think there's anything to suggest that he wasn't totally drunk that night. He was so drunk that they tried to go into another establishment, and they were like, he can't get in, he's too drunk. So they went back to the apartment. Now, what's interesting is he testified that he woke up the next morning, okay? And he went looking around for his phone, and he found his phone, and then somehow he got near the bed where, he was laying, and he kind of moved the covers from his wife's head, and he noticed that she had a gunshot wound in the middle of her head, and she was dead. And he said he immediately felt fear. And he testified that he didn't call the police. And he was scared that people would think he killed her. So he didn't call the police. So he looked around, he got his phone and her phone, and he looked at his phone and saw screenshots, proof that he was cheating, and it was sent to his wife's phone. And so the prosecution got out that sometime between 2:30 in the morning, 2:40 in the morning, the couple had an argument about him cheating, and I guess she had his phone and screenshot proof of his cheating to herself. And then his attorney again goes, and Zarius, how did you feel when you saw those screenshots? And so he testified, he's like, I was like, oh shit, oh crap, how am I gonna explain this to my wife? So what does he do? He sees his wife dead. He doesn't call the police. He deletes pictures from her phone, okay? And he realizes she's supposed to go to work. She's supposed to go to work the next day. And he was like, oh man, I'm gonna pretend I'm my wife. So he gets her phone. He pretends he's his dead wife, and he texts her job that she texted her job as if it was her, saying, hey, look, I got food poisoning. I won't make it into work. He testified that he was stalling at this point. And so what does he go do? He leaves the house. And he goes purchases a 96-gallon trash can and peroxide and other cleaning products. He comes back to the apartment. He testifies that he does some pornography because he says he feels comfortable. He finds comfort in that type of stuff. And then when he was out to get these cleaning products, he also bought himself some alcohol. So he's drinking, he's doing pornography. He hasn't called the police yet. And he says he's trying to stall. Even at one point, he testifies that he called his dad, and he said to his dad, quote unquote, I had a little too much fun last night. All the while, his wife is dead. So he continues drinking and cleaning up. And then this was such a good job by the prosecution. They did a great job with questioning him on the stand, making him describe how he got his wife out of the apartment. And so he started testifying that he put his wife in this 96-gallon trash can, okay? And they made him describe it. So he's talking about how he had to twist her body up and drag her feet so she's coming off the bed to get her into this 96-gallon trash can. And then he stuffs the bloody sheets and the pillows on top of her, puts the lid on it, and strategically decides that he was going to exit the apartment in the back where he knew there was no security cameras. And so he drags his wife in this trash can, puts her in the back of his car, and decides that he was going to dump her in the storm drain. Apparently the couple live like near a park or a wooded area, and there's a storm drain, and he opens up the storm drain. And again, the prosecution was great in questioning him on how he got her in this 15-foot storm drain. And they're like, well, did you place her in there? And he was like, well, no, because he had to drag her out. He got the trash can as close as he could to the storm drain and then just dropped her 15 feet to the bottom. And then he stuffed the bloody sheets and the pillows on top of her, and then he threw the trash can in the middle of the woods. And that's how they discovered her, because someone discovered the trash can, and they did the DNA samples. As if that wasn't enough, he got back to the apartment. Well, before I get there, he poured gasoline on her because he thought he was going to set her on fire, and then realized he didn't want to do that because the fire would cause too much of a scene and then he would probably get found out. So he decided to not light the gasoline on fire. He goes back to the apartment. He continues drinking. He buys a new mattress topper, and still doesn't call the police. He wore gloves. He stated he wore gloves. And then he did some online shopping, took a shower. And the good thing, the prosecution, really scored a big point with this one when they asked him, did you shoot your wife? And he said, I don't know if I shot her or not. And then the next day, guess what he does? He goes to work as if nothing ever happened. He also participated in searching for his wife. while claiming she was missing online. So he did like, my wife is missing online posters. He did a bunch of, her family got together. They went into the woods to go, pretend like they were going to go search for her. And then, like I said, like 15 or 16 times his attorney would say, "And Zarius, how did you feel?" And that is her tone of voice. "And Zarius, how did you feel?" And this fool was like, dishonest, disrespectful, shame. I mean, it was horrible, horrible. So he didn't say, "I miss my wife, I'm sad, I love her." Not one time. It was diabolical. I mean, just absolutely horrible. And what was interesting is the prosecution played something at the end of his testimony, which is golden. They asked him, they said, "So you're aware that when you're in jail, your phone calls are recorded, correct?" He's like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Okay, you had a conversation in jail with your mom. You recall that?" "Yes." "And you told your mom that you needed to testify to work your magic on the jury. Isn't that what you said to your mom?" He was like, "Yes." And they played it. They played the tape of him telling his mom, "I'm going to have to take the stand." And the mom said, "Well, did your attorney say that's going to be, helpful?" He said, "No, not really." And he said, "But I have to take the stand because I'm going to need to work my magic on the jury." Have you ever met someone that was delusional and you wondered, are they really delusional? Do they really believe the words coming out of their mouth? I've met people like that, and I've always questioned whether they were really, really delusional, they believed their crap, or if they were playing me. But at this moment, I realized these people are delusional. They really, truly believe themselves. He really believed he took that stand and was going to be able to convince the jury that he was a likable, good guy and he did nothing wrong. He really believed that. I mean, it was a train wreck and I didn't understand it. I mean, he told on himself. He told how he killed her. He told why he killed her. He was ashamed. He was a dishonest person. I was dumbfounded. And then I was even floored. His attorney kept going, "And how did that make you feel?" Nobody cares how he felt. We've got a woman, his wife, dead at the bottom of a 15-foot storm drain that he threw down there with bloody blankets and pillows. So look, let's just assume the wife said, "Hey, look, I'm going to divorce you. I'm a family law attorney, but I work out of California. I am dumbfounded at the great fear of divorce being so great that you desire to kill. The law acts as a pressure valve to keep real situations from exploding. Let's talk about California standard family law and divorce." First of all, I don't practice in Arizona, so I'm giving you California law, okay? California is a no-fault state. That means there's no need to cover up, okay? In trial, the prosecution argued that the motive of Zarius was the fear of exposure regarding an online affair. As a California family law expert from a purely legal standpoint, the law simply doesn't care about cheating. California was the first state to adopt true no-fault divorce. In California, you don't need a reason to exit a marriage other than irreconcilable differences. Infidelity does not change how assets are split. The law provides an administrative exit. Okay, so let me explain a little bit how California would deal with the assets. They lived in an apartment. Their debt was probably minimal. They were relatively young, only married 8 months. The estate is not massive, but maybe they had a car and some vehicles and a little bit of debt. So California has a strict community property law. Anything acquired from the date of marriage to the date of separation is divided equally, generally. There's things like inheritance and separate property, and there's other nuances, but it's pretty straightforward division that would have occurred in family court versus this nightmare of a criminal trial. Okay, and the lease, breaking an apartment lease during a divorce is a standard financial liability, usually split down the middle or handled by indemnifying the party who moves out. Okay, so they're household items. In California's simple household property laws, furniture, electronics, it's typically divided by stipulation or a simple offset. In a California family court, dividing a modest estate with no real estate takes paperwork, not a crime scene. A family law attorney can untangle a joint lease and split community debts in a matter of weeks. They didn't have any children, so they had a no children factor. That's the cleanest break. The couple did not have children. From a family law perspective, it simplifies the process exponentially. When there are no minor children of the marriage, there's no ongoing custody battle, no parenting plans, and no child support calculations. In California, we also have something called a summary dissolution. So if a couple's been in California, married under 5 years, has no children, doesn't own real estate, and has limited debts and assets, they qualify for an expedited streamlined divorce that doesn't even require a judge's hearing. When a marriage has no children and limited assets, California law actually provides an express lane to separate. It serves as a reminder that the law makes it incredibly legal, straightforward to walk away and start over. And in January of this year, California enacted a process where even if you have children and a substantial estate, as long as you and your spouse are on the same page, you can file a joint petition and you don't have to fight about these things. So I say to you, criminal trial, murder, storm drains versus a very straightforward divorce where you can both walk away and start over. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who believed they were the smartest person in every room? The kind of person who thinks they can talk their way out of anything, like lie without blinking and convince everyone that what they're seeing with their own eyes isn't real? That's exactly what came to mind as I listened to the testimony of this husband. One statement stopped me dead in my tracks. While sitting in jail, he told his mother he needed to testify because he was going to work his magic. Work his magic? Just think about that for a second. Not, I need to tell the truth. Not, I need to apologize. Not, I can't believe what I've done. No. His focus appeared to be on convincing the jury, on persuading them, on making them believe his version of events. That tells me something. It suggests someone who still believes they can control the narrative, even when the evidence is stacked against them. Now, I'm not a psychologist and I'm certainly not diagnosing anyone, but as a family law attorney, I've spent decades watching people testify. I've watched people manipulate. I've watched people minimize. I've watched people rewrite history while sitting under oath. One thing I've learned, people who believe they can manipulate everyone usually overestimate their own ability. They think they're the exception. They think they're untouchable. And sometimes, as in this situation, their own arrogance becomes their biggest enemy. Then came another part of this case that I simply can't get past. After his wife was dead, he placed her body in a trash can, transported her, and threw her into a storm drain. A storm drain. Let that sink in. This wasn't a stranger. People often ask me, hey, Joni, what is the biggest red flag? It isn't always yelling. It isn't always cheating. It isn't always one explosive event. Sometimes it's entitlement. It's believing other people exist only to serve your needs. It's believing the rules don't apply to you. It's believing you can manipulate everyone around you. It's believing you'll always be the smartest person in the room. And eventually, that belief collides with reality. For me, this case isn't just about a murder. It's about the progression of red flags, manipulation, deception, lack of empathy, control, entitlement. Those aren't isolated character flaws. They're warning signs. And if they're ignored long enough, the consequences can be devastating. Before we leave today, remember this. Not every red flag ends in tragedy. Most don't. But every tragedy leaves behind red flags that people wish they had recognized sooner. If today's conversation causes even one person to trust their instincts, create a safety plan, or choose peace over proving a point, then this conversation mattered. Love deeply, love courageously, but never love at the expense of your safety. Remember, the goal isn't to stop loving. The goal is to become wise enough to recognize when love has stopped being safe. Spot the red flags before they become exhibits in court. Until next time, love hard, leave smarter. I'm Joni Salomon, and this has been On One.